Good evening. Welcome to this evening's edition of the Rich Urban Show. I am your host, Rich Urban, coming to historic Harpers Ferry, West Virginia. And tonight we're very happy to welcome a longtime friend, Michelle Burris. And
thank you.
Yes. Hey, Michelle, how you doing tonight?
I'm doing great. How are you? Thank you for having me.
Yeah, excellent, excellent. So I've known Michelle since she was in high school at School Without Walls. She was in our program for a little while there. Yeah, please introduce yourself. Tell us something about yourself.
Sure. So as Richard mentioned, my name is Michelle, and I grew up in Washington, D.C. I met Richard, I think, my junior and senior year of high school. I'm currently 26 years old. I'll be 27 in November, and I have been abstinent and for spiritual and for godly reasons. And so I'm just waiting on God and waiting on his confirmation. And so God has truly blessed me in my life. I was able to go to college, and I served in the Peace Corps in Rwanda, just graduated with a master's at Columbia University, and now I am doing research for a foundation, and at the same time, I'm just trying to live a godly life and continue this abstinent lifestyle until marriage. So I'm happy to be on the show and happy to be sharing my experience and my thoughts.
I have a reading from the Peace Message by Reverend Samuel Moon. So let me share my screen, and we will read that. Okay, I'm going to do that now. Okay. It has been a course that took him down thorny paths through the wilderness, paths that he had to follow while utterly alone. Not even God could acknowledge him, hovering many times between life and death, even vomiting blood. His life has been one of establishing a model of sexual morality, the life of a phoenix that had to rise again to remain true to his promise to God. Though he was innocent, Reverend Moon had to endure unjust imprisonment 6 times for working in the underground independence movement when he was studying Japan in his early days, for propagating the will of God in Pyongyang, which was under communist rule immediately after Korea's independence. During the Syngman Rhee administration, after Korea had been reborn as a free nation, and furthermore, even in the United States, which proudly presents itself to the world as a model of democracy. Who on earth can understand the life of Reverend Moon, a life that has been one of perfecting a model of sexual morality? His has been a life of misery. By biting his tongue, he's endured for the sake of comforting God and for the salvation of the fallen people of the world who are suffering in the realm of death. Even now, if someone were to look into my heart and speak one word of sympathy, I'd burst into tears and my tears would flow like a waterfall. There's only one way to recover the realm of lineage, the right of the elder son and the right of ownership. That is a path to win the natural subjugation of Satan, to have Satan surrender voluntarily. What is the secret to accomplish this? It can only be accomplished by the power of true love, when we love our enemies more than we love our own children. Then what is true love? Its essence is to give, to live for the sake of others, and for the sake of the whole. True love gives, forgets that it has given, and continues to give without ceasing. True love gives joyfully. We find it in the joyful and loving heart of a mother who cradles her baby in her arms and nurses it at her breast. True love is sacrificial love, as with a devoted son who finds his greatest satisfaction in dedicating his mind and body to helping his parents. When we are bound together in true love, we can be together forever, continually rejoicing in each other's company. The attraction of true love brings all things in the universe to our feet. Even God will come to dwell with us. Nothing can compare to the value of true love. It has the power to dissolve the barriers that fallen people have created, including national boundaries and the barriers of race and even religion. The main attributes of God's true love are that it's absolute, unique, unchanging, and eternal. So whoever practices true love will live with God, share his happiness, and enjoy the right to participate as an equal in his work. Therefore, a life lived for the sake of others, a life of true love, is the absolute precondition for entering the kingdom of heaven. So yeah, oops. Yeah, if I can get your comments on that, that'd be great.
Oh, that fed me a lot. I read it this evening too, and it was just beautiful. I think from when you talked about true love, I think it underscores that, God and Jesus is love. And so love begins with Jesus. And so whenever, someone says that they love you, you got to question, what do they know God? Because you can't really love someone until you know God. And this really going back to like when the Bible says that there's no greater love than when Jesus died for us. And so it's just knowing that Jesus is the root of love. And it's almost impossible for someone to love you if they don't have the love of God in them. And I think that's the comforting thing to know that, you know, many people in this world might disappoint you, or they can, you know, break your heart or even try to break your spirit. But when you have a relationship with God, you know, he's able to fill that void. It's, things still may hurt. Things can hurt a lot. You know, you can go through pain. We're all going to go through pain on this road. But as Christians, it makes a difference because you know who the true love of God is. And then that goes back to, you know, Jesus, he drew people to him through love and compassion. So
yes,
in order to draw people to Christ, we're supposed to be witnesses for Jesus. We have to have that love and compassion that Christ has. And we want people to see the light in us, you know. So I can't really walk down the street as a Christian and be mean to someone, or not being able to give to someone who I see in need, or not being able to smile, because, you know, if I want people to come to Christ, then my life has to be that example. And my life has to resemble a life that Christ lived. And that's not to say that things are going to be easy, because they're not. Definitely not. You know, I've had to end a lot of relationships because of my commitment to abstinence. But you have to know that when God promised you something, that, you know, his love is what's going to sustain you, and there's no greater love. And so it's my duty every day to show that love to people, you know, whether I'm at work, at school, on the street, you know, want people to see. Sorry, I had a call coming through my other end.
oh yeah, that's one disadvantage of using the phone. But yeah, well, while you're adjusting that, I'll just comment. Yeah, I totally agree with you. I mean, I really respect the fact, you know, that you're you know, keeping sexual purity, waiting for on the person that God is sending you. I think, and that you're talking about it, you know, you're not shy about it. So I think that definitely that is a shining light, really. I respect the fact that you know, have stayed, kept your sexual purity, you're waiting on God. And yeah, I totally agree with you. You know, we have to exemplify the love of Jesus, which was definitely an other-centered love.
Right.
And I think this key point that like the peace message brings out about in other parts of it, the importance of sexual purity is an important part too. What do you think?
Oh, absolutely. I think because being sexually pure is a way of serving God, to submit our bodies to him. And I think it's like, it's part of my service to God to submit my body and to trust him, you know, because the reality is, you know, when people sleep together, when people have sex outside of marriage, your spirits are connecting. And
Yes.
God created sex for marriage. He told us to be fruitful and multiply in marriage. And so I think that's why a lot of times sex can complicate things. It can make people drawn to each other, or it's harder to break up with each other, or it's harder to let go of each other because you're so caught up in that sexual lust and that desire, to the point where you forget what God has and what God may want. And I think, you know, it hasn't been easy for me, of course not, these past 26 years. And there have been men who, you know, they don't want to be in a relationship if I am committed to abstinence. And so that's been hard. Of course, it's hard, but you have to stick to God's promise that, you know, I do believe that God created someone, especially and specifically for me in marriage. And so I'm just waiting on him. I'm waiting to see who Christ has in store for me. And it's just trusting him, because sexual purity is almost the least we can do. You know, I can't give God money. I can't, you know, I can't see him face to face and hug him every day and say, thank you for all you've done for me. So the least I can do is submit my body to him and submit to him in spirit and truth. And I think abstinence is the best way to do it. Not think, but I know it's the best way to do it, because, you know, giving your body to someone, that's meant for my husband. And so, you know, someone used to say, when you do that, when you do it outside of marriage, you're almost cheating on God, because he loves you and he knows what's best for us. And he created a wife or a husband for us for that purpose. So I don't never want to cheat out God, and I always want to hold to his promise, you know. And I do think that it saves a lot of emotional pain, and it saves a lot of spiritual wickedness and lust to not be having sex outside of marriage. And so the hardest thing is waiting. And right now, you know, I'm waiting in complete honesty. You know, I just ended a relationship this week because my ex-boyfriend got frustrated with my commitment to abstinence. And I knew that God was telling me that, you know, this isn't
this isn't worth it. Just wait on His promises. And that hasn't been easy emotionally for me. It's been really hard this week, but I'm continuing to trust God that my commitment is the best thing, and I'm going to keep trusting Him until He sends me the husband that I need.
Hey, and He will.
Yeah.
I respect that. I really do. That's beautiful. I do want to share one more thing before you jump into your talking about your experience in Rwanda or whatever you'd like to share about that. I was going to share a slide about the our initiative for the Youth Prevention Corps.
Okay, yeah.
So yeah, because it relates to what we've been talking about. So I'm going to share that on the screen right now, and I'm going to make this bigger. Right, okay. So the Right Choice Youth Prevention Corps, so purpose is to mobilize the 50+% of youth who are abstaining from sexual intercourse to encourage even more youth to make right choices. The background is that urban life training raises youth leaders, develop good character and model, and teach about the benefits of sexual abstinence in preparation for marriage and successful family formation. And we provide classroom education for over 3,000 DC public school youth, and I provide urban life training and leadership hubs to over 250 youth. And we provide peer counseling to over 2,000 DC youth. So the outline of the Right Choices Youth Prevention Corps. Preparation. Recruit a team of 5 to 10 youths per school who can be part of the Youth Prevention Corps at 12 public charter, private high schools. Work with each school's principal to provide relationship intelligence education to at least 200 youth at each school. Prevention training. Provide a 1-week training program for between 60 and 120 youth interested in being on the Prevention Corps. Classroom peer counseling. During the school year, youth who have received training will provide peer counseling at their own school. They may also partner with nearby middle schools to provide peer counseling for use at those schools. Special events. Right Choice Youth Prevention Corps members may also appear at assemblies or special events. So yeah, that's the basic idea. What do you think about that?
I think it's phenomenal. I think it's truly phenomenal. You know, it's disheartening when I hear some of my fellow peers say, you know, well, kids are not abstinent now, so just give them condoms because they're going to do it, or there's no such thing as kids being abstinent, or you're just considered so weird or a religious fanatic if you practice abstinence. And
right.
I think we need that. Kids need to see that their fellow peers are practicing abstinence, and that it's not a terrible thing to wait until marriage. And what's funny is that I'm seeing a lot of celebrities actually commit to celibacy because they regret that they didn't practice abstinence. So I think it is gaining not popularity, but people are seeing the benefits of it, but I don't think it's happening enough. And so I think it's encouraging when people can have a support system to know that here's abstinence and a strong family foundation. So I think that's phenomenal, because I think the hardest way to fall is to feel like you're doing this alone, and to feel like you're the weird one, you know, when you're in high school and everyone just talked about their first time, or everyone is talking about who they're sleeping with. And it's scary to be the bold one to say, well, I'm going to be abstinent until marriage. And no one wants to be ostracized or can call it weird. So I think having that at a high school is phenomenal. And then number two, I think it's phenomenal because just to instill those values, you know, we took the Bible out of school, we take prayer out of school, but you know, it's important to know that there are people, young people out here still living for God. You know, I'm grateful to have friends who are abstinent and who have committed to abstinence until marriage, and to see the success of it. I have a friend who just got married and waited until marriage, but I think that took a support system. You know, it's not easy, and I don't know how much it could have been a lot harder if I didn't know anyone else who was doing this with me. And I also think that it's part of God's purpose, because, you know, if God tells us to be witnesses, then we have to lead by example, and not just for us, but to help other people. So it also sounds like a divine duty and purpose to help other youth commit to abstinence as well. So
I think so. Yeah, so I'm hoping that that idea can expand more. I mean, even from a young age, even from upper elementary or 5th, 6th grade, definitely middle school, onto high school, if we could provide this kind of support system, to me, it seems like a no-brainer. The cost is virtually nothing. I mean, there's some cost of having people promulgate it. Of course, some people are volunteers, but relative to other things, it's basically very low cost and great benefit, don't you think?
Yeah, I think it's great. Will some of it be on weekends? Because I would love to be a part of it and help out with it.
Well, so right now, I mean, so we're like, we want to, you know, have different young adults like yourself and parents and people who are interested, you know, get involved and make it happen. So we're like, you know, actually we were working directly in schools in DC. We're not right now, but we're still hoping that we can gain traction and have different people who are interested, like promulgated in schools and things like that. So in other words, like run with the ball, because we have like this kind of system and materials all already prepared. So that's kind of where we're at right now. So
Well,
it's
that's
kind of like, I guess we're yeah, in that stage of like promulgating it, but we don't like have like these clubs all over, although we have, as you know, since you were participating, been doing them. So it's a matter of like, I guess, getting people who are interested and, you know, in doing it in their schools.
well, I hope a lot of schools respond, and if there's anything on the weekends or after school, I'd love to get involved.
Okay, perfect.
And just tell my story, you know, because I'm sure people may not have seen a 26-year-old version. So, you know, just to give a testimony, and hopefully I'll be able to give a great testimony one day when I do meet, when I am with someone who's committed to abstinence with me. So
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I was at a couple of years ago. One of the young ladies who was at we also worked in my local neighborhood school, Eastern Senior High School, and
yeah, I know.
she abstained, and she's married now. She's in the New York area, New York City area. But yeah, I went to her wedding, so yeah, it's a good thing to see. I'm very happy to see that.
Amazing.
Yeah, so I
That's
hope more people can enjoy it. And sometimes I bump into people, of course, who didn't. Maybe they were in a program and then they, you know, I was talking to one young lady, oh, Mr. Urban, you know, yeah, I heard what he said, but I didn't follow it. But I wish I did. But
yeah.
some people followed, some didn't, you know?
But I think at the end of the day, a lot of times people wish that they did, and they see, you know, that sometimes it's not worth the pain and breaking the vow to God. And I'm thankful for those who stick with it.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. So yeah, good to hear your thoughts on that. Yeah,
Sure.
well, yeah, I hope to work together with you and others to make it happen.
That'll be awesome.
Absolutely. Yeah. So you were gonna share like I think share what's on your mind about, if you like, about your experience in the Peace Corps or Rwanda or that kind of thing. I think you wanted to share something about that, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So do you want me to talk about like how I enjoyed it spiritually, or just my overall experience, or
I think
anything?
however it hits you, like the idea is to maybe share something that will be edifying for people. Yeah, you're welcome to share your spiritual journey. There's certainly no restriction, or other things you want to talk about it. It's totally up to you.
Sure. So I'll share my spiritual and then personal journey. So spiritually, Peace Corps was very trying for me. I think I was in Rwanda, and as we know, Rwanda is a post-genocide country, and so there's a lot of trauma in Rwanda still from the genocide that happened in 1994. And by that, sometimes the people were less friendly, or it was just hard to really make friends and integrate because of the trauma that still exists in Rwanda, especially because there's so much ethnic tension. So spiritually, God really blessed me because I was actually next door to an NGO called World Vision, and they're a Christian organization that helps with humanitarian development. And so literally I was right next door to them. I taught at a boarding school, and it just so happened that my house was next door to them. So I introduced myself, and then turns out they have Bible study every day in their local language, Kinyarwanda, and they also invited me to come and do it in English with them. And so I was fortunate to have a spiritual support system. So literally I would go next door around 7:30 in the morning, and we would just pray and have Bible study in two different languages, in English
Wow.
and language Kinyarwanda. Yeah. And so, you know, I had no idea that I would be next door to them. And sometimes I didn't understand the language, but I did know that the word of God was being preached. And I did know that it was a great way to start my day and a great way to integrate into the community. And so Peace Corps is a government organization. It's not meant by any means to witness or to convert people to Christianity, but that was the purpose that God gave me. So I was over there doing Bible study and praying with people. And I'm grateful because we would have conversations about how to improve our community and how to worship God. And so I was grateful. I came to Peace Corps in a cohort of about 36 people. I would say maybe 3 or 4 of us really identified as true Christians. And so it wasn't a popular thing to be a Christian, definitely wasn't popular to be abstinent. But I enjoyed being a witness in Rwanda. Then on top of that, I went to church while I was in Rwanda, but usually the church services were not in English. And so, but God always made a way. He would send actually students to come translate for me. And so while the service might be happening in Kinyarwanda, they would translate it for me in English. And I ended up getting close to the pastor, and I would sit in the pulpit sometimes and have dinner with the pastor. The congregation would bring me food. And so I think just, it was a total different language and a total different culture background. The love of God was still there. And I think being in Rwanda really grew me spiritually, because some of the congregants, they didn't even have furniture. They didn't have a couch. They didn't have running water. They didn't have electricity. They maybe was making maybe $2 or $5 a week. But they still brought me food. They still were very generous to me. They still would witness to me, and they would say Iman and Nishimwe, which is God is good in the local language. And so I think what really amazed me was to see people who could worship God despite any circumstance. And I mean, the community that I lived in was very Christian, and they love Jesus, they love God. And so just to see how people can love God even with no running water, even without all of the amenities that we have here in America, was a beautiful thing to witness. I would say personally, I grew as well. I was the first African American in my community in Rwanda. And in Rwanda, people were not used to African American volunteers, because typically volunteers are not Black in the Peace Corps. And so there was a lot of confusion. A lot of people thought that I was not American. I was told that I was Rwandan. Even people would say, well, you're not a real volunteer because you're Black. Or they would ask me, well, if you're from America.
Were they trying to insult you, or they just didn't know?
Both.
I mean, signs kind of insulting.
Yeah, I think a little bit of both, but I think a lot of ignorance. And so God really taught me compassion, because to go through that for 2 years was really tough. And there were times that I wanted to quit, and times where I think Satan was trying to attack me with depression, but I knew that there was a purpose for me being there. And so I ended up staying because I loved my students, and my students really wanted to learn about American racial diversity. They wanted to learn about people of color, about Hispanic people, about Black Americans, about Native Americans, because they had never seen that before. No one had ever taught them that. And so that kept me there, knowing that there was a purpose for why I was there. And then when it came time for graduate school, I ended up writing about my experience. I wrote about feeling insulted. I wrote about the race relations and racism that I encountered in my experience. And it ended up, all of my graduate schools, all of them, I applied to 5 schools, and all of them accepted me with a scholarship because they really enjoyed, what I wrote about. Because I ended up writing a curriculum about what I experienced. And so it was very painful, but I ended up writing a curriculum about racial diversity and social justice. And so I call it kind of turning my pain into purpose. And so that was really just divine, and really I just really thank God that there was a reason for why I went through what I went through, because my curriculum was able to be used by other volunteers, not just in Rwanda, but also in Botswana and in Tonga in Asia, in the Pacific Islands, I'm sorry. And so I'm just grateful. Peace Corps was definitely the hardest thing I did. I did not have running water. I had electricity. I didn't have a TV, no refrigerator, no microwave, no washer, no dryer. But that wasn't the hardest part. The hardest part was honestly being the first African American in my village, and enduring kind of just stereotypes and discrimination. But I think being able to educate people and being able to learn from them, because I could have easily gotten upset with the people there and quit, or I could have gotten angry. But just learning to love people as God would have wanted me to love them, that was a true growing experience for me. And I would say, in Rwanda, of course, I didn't have access to a lot of Americans. It was a very remote location. So being abstinent was harder, because essentially I was lonely, being away from family for 2 years and friends for 2 years. Satan can attack you sometimes with lust, and to want somebody to feel that loneliness. But I'm grateful that I did stay, abstinent, but it wasn't easy because, you know, you want to be with someone during that 2 years and you want someone to fill the void, but just realizing that you can't compromise your vow to God. So that was the whole experience in Rwanda was a very growing experience for me. And
Wow.
I think also too, you know, I'm grateful that I was able to keep in touch with my grandparents while I was in Rwanda. You know, at the time when I left, they were 84 and 94. And I said, okay, God, you know, I'm going to do this, but please keep my grandparents. And so I was able to Skype with them pretty much every other day, just like we're talking now. And I was able to FaceTime them every other day. And so God just blessed me with that promise. And then when I came back, I was able to spend time with my grandfather for about 4 months, and then he passed away. So I was just grateful that God
Wow.
had that time, and I felt like that God had really revealed His promise to me, and that, you know, He told me that He would take care of them, and He did. And I'm so grateful, and I'm grateful. You know, I'm at my grandmother's home right now; she's still with me. So I'm grateful that God revealed His promise to me, and He helped me to grow to be stronger. I had no idea that Peace Corps was going to be that hard, but it definitely shaped me into the person that I am today, and it helped me get the job that I have right now. It helped me get into graduate school, but I think more than anything, it made me develop a deeper trust and love for Him and for His people.
Wow, that's a great testimony.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
I mean, um, yeah, I'm just really glad to hear your testimony, and also how, like, you've been talking about keeping your integrity and your sexual integrity, really, and that's really crucial. And it sounds like that's been an integral part of your walk, you know, because you mentioned it
Absolutely.
a number of times. Yeah.
It's been huge. I mean, I'm 26, and you know, I see people who are having kids outside of marriage, or I see people who may have gotten. I have friends maybe who have gotten married but had sex before marriage, and so, you know, I'm at that age where a lot of my friends are getting married, or either getting married or may have had sex before marriage or may be pregnant. And I think it's important to really keep that vow with God and to know, you know, don't compare yourself, and everything is His time, and trust in Him. And you know, never compare yourself, and especially never compare yourself to anyone who's not living for God. And so that sexual pure integrity has been crucial because I'm at an age where people my age are, you know, having sex and are experimenting and living free. So having a commitment to God is not, it's not always 100% the easiest route, but I know it's the correct route to be on.
Yes. Absolutely. Absolutely. Wow, that is a great testimony. So yeah, really internal testimony of your like experience there. Yeah. Yeah, did you have any other thoughts about that? I mean, you covered a lot of ground there. I
No,
mean, I really appreciate that.
yeah, I would just encourage people, you know, just really keep the faith. And I'm grateful for God's love. You know, I could have easily lost my virginity at 15. You know, there are a lot of distractions out here. There's a lot of temptation. There are a lot of people who don't want what's best for you and really will just take advantage. And so I'm grateful. You know, I'm grateful. I look around and I see some of my peers who are pregnant at 16, 17, 15, and I'm thankful for the grace of God. And it's not to judge or condemn them, but I am grateful to be on this walk and in this covenant for God. And I'm in it to the end. And, you know, I've communicated with God, and I just say, you know, let your will be done. And I ask Him, you know, to please bless me with a helpmate, you know, because I want a helpmate, not just a husband and not just a man, but someone who will help me live and edify God. And essentially, you know, I want someone who's going to love God more than anything, including me. So I'm just waiting, and hopefully I'll be messaging you with the invitation to my wedding one day. It's that's
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah, definitely, definitely.
just trying.
Wow. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that's a beautiful thing. Yeah, God will keep His promise. I guarantee that.
Thank you so much.
Yeah. Wow. Well, I think we've covered most of the topics. Unless you have something else on your mind.
No, just encourage the young people, and you know, I don't know the listeners, but if anyone of them want to reach out and ever chat or just begin a support circle, I'm here for them. You have my phone and email, so yeah, just keep that support system going. And I admire the work that you all are doing, and I hope to get involved in your training.
This is Rich Urban. I'm reporting to you from Historic Harpers Ferry. We do thank you for joining us tonight. So be blessed, and we'll see you next time. We thank Michelle for coming on the program tonight, and see you next time.